it's Sarah from Inspire Tarot. Welcome to the channel. I hope you're doing well today. Let's see what message Spirit has for us for today. Three of Pentacles. So Three of Pentacles is a card all about, on here it says collaboration, skill and teamwork. So yeah, the Three of Pentacles is a beautiful card. We know that collaborating is what truly makes us happy, even when we don't even realise it. Collaborating helps return us to our unified state of mind. So yeah, when we're told in A Course in Miracles that bodies don't really join, but the mind joins. And the mind is anyway permanently joined, but because we believe that we exist in our separated state, because we live according to dualistic beliefs, we believe that we have separate minds with separate thoughts, and other people have separate minds with separate thoughts. But this is never true, but it appears that this way to us because of what we believe, and because the mind is so powerful, what we believe feels to be true. So with the Three of Pentacles, the Spirit is always trying to get us to collaborate. So we can see that when we all join together in the one mind, it's what makes us happy. So it could be anything that we're collaborating on. It could be an actual project. It usually is with the Pentacles. It's usually something in physical form. But yeah, it could be just thinking what I've been working on a sewing project with someone else. Or it could be anything at all. It doesn't really matter, anything at all in form. But it's not really about the form. We as humans always think everything is about the form, and we place very high priority on the form. But the form is always just the vehicle and the backdrop for the mind. And the more we heal, the more we see this shift. The more we understand that the external world is not important, and it's the mind that's important. It's our interpretations. And it's almost like we're on this sliding scale of thinking that the external world is very real and has power over us. We move away from that on almost like a sliding scale to knowing that the external world doesn't have any value or any power over us at all. That we can reinterpret everything with the Spirit to see that everything is just for the mind. And the more we do that, the more we feel safe, the more we feel anchored in truth and in love. Because we do have control over our own mind at all times, whereas we don't have control over seemingly external things. So if we can bring our power back to the mind, then we're always going to feel safe and comfortable, because that's just where the power is, because we are just one mind, and mind is the only cause of everything in the world. And we're just kind of learning to, through repetition, teach ourselves that over and over and over again. And the Three of Pentacles card, so the Spirit will use things that we collaborate on in form. It could be our job, it could be our family, it could be hobbies, anything at all. It could be like a spiritual community, absolutely anything that the Spirit will use as a backdrop for us to learn to collaborate, to work together, to bring our skills, to bring our authentic self, and to work together as a team, and to always work for the win-win. So yeah, I love this Three of Pentacles card. It's very pretty, but yeah, it's a wonderful concept. So Judgment is all about rebirth, awakening and redemption, as it says on this card. So yeah, this is a very spiritual card, something that we're always going through all the time, whenever we don't really realise that we're kind of born again in every now moment. We're never the same person, and we're not really a person at all, but from our human perspective, we're never the same person, because we're always evolving and growing. And I know my friends have said to me, oh, you know, you seem so different, you're very different from what you were a few years ago. And it's funny to me, but I suppose when we grow and change, it's quite gradual for us, so we don't really notice it until we look backwards. I sometimes look back at old notes and things that I've written, and things that I was stuck with that I'm no longer stuck on. And we do grow and shift, but we're constantly going through this rebirth. And because our self-concept is held together by the mind, it's just a bunch of concepts. The world is just a bunch of concepts. I was thinking about this in regards to relationships, that a relationship is really just a bunch of expectations that hold it together. And if you really sit down and think about it, it's absurd to think that we relate to each other in the form of expectations. So yeah, we're just always being given opportunities to heal, to see things differently, and to be born again. And if you're on the spiritual path, you will often feel as though you're going through lots of uncomfortable emotions all the time. I think Ken Wapnick had once said, if you really want to take your healing seriously, then be prepared to be out of your comfort zone a lot, to be in the dark, looking at your distortions in the mind, because the only way out is through. In the Bible, it talks about going through the shadow of the valley of death, knowing that Spirit or Jesus is with us all the time. And this is something that, as you get more trusting, as you get more confident, you just kind of accept that dilly-dallying around is not going to help with your journey. I mean, earlier on in the journey, when we don't trust and we have very intense emotions and we're afraid of our emotions, then we just can feel completely discombobulated and bewildered but with the whole journey. But after a while, you really do start to see that you understand the ebb and flow of the journey. You understand that every time you go through a lot of intensity in the shadow, that you come back stronger. And you just get to look at the way you interpret everything that's happened to you differently. So rather than thinking, I'm just this pawn in a sick game, you start to see that everything is just an opportunity for you to see things differently and for you to heal. And the more contrast you have, the more opportunity you have to grow and expand your consciousness. And I think the more you trust, the more you just learn to reinterpret everything as helpful and to almost be excited when things are difficult. It's almost like bring it on, because I know it's helping me get through the muck sooner. I kind of liken it to renovating houses. It's like you've got to rip it all out and smash all the walls down and make a complete mess before you can clear it all out and put it all back together beautiful. So yeah, and the Three of Wands is all about expansion, exploration and foresight, as it says on this card. So yeah, we're always wanting to expand our horizons. The more we expand our consciousness, the more of a zoomed out strategic kind of perspective we have, then the easier it is to see, in line with the Course's teachings, that the world is completely harmonious at all times when seen through the lens of love. When seen with Christ's vision, we see that everyone is having the experiences they need to heal, and that there's just a higher truth in everything, and that the darkness serves the light. I've mentioned this before, that when awful things happen to us that seem upsetting, that's what kickstarts us into wanting to heal or want to find the light. So yeah, the more we expand, the more we can align with the Course principles, that all things work together for good, that anything that doesn't feel good is not true, that we all share one mind, and that the Spirit or Jesus or whoever you want to think of, the angels or your higher self, is always with you at all times. You can never be forsaken. And even though things seem to happen to the body that can seem really difficult, we're never really more than a thought away from understanding that we are the mind that exists outside of time, and we're completely innocent. So yeah, right, let's get some more cards. The Two of Cups. So the Two of Cups is a card again about partnership and harmony, sometimes about romantic relationships. Romantic relationships definitely bring us a lot of contrast, because I think these are the relationships where we tend to have the most expectations. And when we go into romantic relationships, we really go into them from, wanting to get our expectations met. We think that we are like a miserable sinner, and that we're lacking, and we go into a romantic relationship because we want the other person to make us feel good, and we don't even know what we're doing. We've just kind of socialized to go into relationships with this way of being. It's almost like if we're in a relationship, we're more worthy, or that we need someone else to make us feel good, which of course is not true. And often people who have a lot of trauma will find that relationships can be actually just painful to be in and be quite frightening because of the thoughts in the mind that maybe seem as if they're actually in the relationship, but really they're always just in the mind. But the spirit can reuse our difficult relationships to help us. So yeah, the romantic relationship is a very powerful vehicle for healing. And A Course in Miracles is all about healing through relationship. But we can have relationships with absolutely anybody and everybody. All right, see what else comes out. But yeah, we're just being taught to see relationships in a very different light. The Empress card, I particularly love this card. It's really pretty. So yeah, the Empress is like the feminine equivalent of wholeness. So the Empress card talks about abundance, motherhood, and fertility. So it's all about bringing rebirth and new life, creativity, and wholeness. So we're always kind of wanting to be the Empress. If we're like the feminine essence, then being the Empress is a nice card to come out, because it just means that we're evolved. And yeah, the Empress is just somebody who kind of stands in her power. She's very comfortable being herself. In this card, she's kind of in prayer and in stillness. So she understands her connection to all things, and that we need to always be guided by our higher self, or the spirit, whatever we want to call it. So she's very in tune, very in flow with the world and with her higher self. And the Empress is also in a position of power, so she gets to teach, sometimes literally, or other times just by being like a living demonstration of what it's like to be a loving, nurturing, giving human being. Just like a physical representation of love on earth. So yeah, it's a beautiful card. And I've said before, I think that the Empress is the culmination of all of the four suits. So the desire, the purpose, also the relationships and love and the mind. So powerfully speaks her truth. And then the Pentacles, which is lives comfortably in the physical world and trusts that everything that's needed will be provided. And is just in a very receptive energy. Next card out is the Knight of Cups. The Knight of Cups is very committed to love. We often think of this card as like the knight in shining armour in a traditional romantic sense. But from a more spiritual perspective, the Knight of Cups is just somebody who's very devoted to unconditional love. Somebody who's very open-hearted, very charming, good with people. And we'll kind of dive into creative projects. So this is a very open-hearted and passionate state of mind. Because it's a cups, it can also be very idealistic, very focused on healing and forgiveness. So yeah, this is a beautiful card that just really shows the commitment to love and the commitment to emotional healing, because the path is all about mind and heart healing. And the Knights, you know, quite often in our Western society, men are socialized to not share their emotions. So the Knight of Cups is a representation of a masculine energy who is comfortable being vulnerable and emoting, which of course is very appealing in a relationship, because we connect through our emotions, and our emotions are very important. Quite often we want to run away from our emotions. The fear of love that humans have is very, very strong, and it sounds absurd to say that we're afraid of love, but we are afraid of love. It can cause such overwhelm in us and trigger all our feelings of unworthiness and I'm not ready and all these different things. And the Spirit is always moving us, inching us a little bit towards opening up more and feeling safe to open up more and to allow a bit more love in. And this Knight is very comfortable with embracing that process. Next out is the Four of Pentacles. This is a card about like security and control and stability. So the Four of Pentacles I think of as kind of a lack mindset, about being overly attached to the 3D. Can be a lot of insecurity and fear in relationships, resistance to change and being possessive. So these are all lessons that we learn on our spiritual path, where we try and attach to form things. I've had this come up for me this week, where you feel as though your safety and security comes from something in form being a certain way, and the Spirit is always reminding us to let go of these concepts, because then we feel if things don't turn out as we want them to turn out, then we feel destabilized. But there is no stability in the form. Stability comes from letting go of the form, which is a powerful understanding and something that we need to repeat over and over again. That the more, it's almost like the less we have, the more trusting we have to be in the Spirit, that everything is provided. So yeah, we need to move away from this mindset and put our faith in God and in the Spirit more and more, and let go of our attachment to things. It doesn't mean that we can't enjoy the physical world and things, but that we're trusting that everything that we need will be provided. But we just have to try and let down our belief that we have to provide things for ourselves, that we have to do things for ourselves. When we actually just let go and ask and trust, then things come through anyway. The next card out is the Devil. So this is a juicy card for talking about. The Devil is essentially the shadow or the ego. It's about the separate self and all the distorted ways that we go about trying to gratify ourselves or find this peace and stability, which we can't really find in the world. So the Devil is represented by addictions. So it could be addictions to people, or addictions to substances, or addictions to things playing out a certain way. So there's much to look at when the Devil card comes out. It's really about going into the depths of the unconscious mind to see what is controlling us and why. And usually I find that it's because we're afraid to feel our feelings. So we turn to addictions, we turn to like doom scrolling on social media, and just looking outside of ourselves for satisfaction. And it's actually quite an easy fix to just remember that every time we want to look outside ourselves for something to make us feel better, that we need to pull the mind back and remember that we don't lack anything, that the belief that we lack something is just a concept in the mind, and to flip it. And if we're struggling to flip it, then we need to speak to the Spirit about why am I feeling this way? What's coming up in me? What emotion am I not facing? What's the issue underneath that I'm not seeing? And look at it with the spirit, because the ego and the shadow is really it's just all about the distortions and the mistruths in the mind that we've developed over time, all the things that we believe that aren't true. So we kind of want this part of us to stay down in the unconscious mind, or we project it onto the external world. We see our own negative patterns in other people. And this is why we always need to pull our projections back and look at them so we can see. Because when we project issues out into the external world, it can seem as if the power is outside of us, or the problem is outside of us, and that we have no control over it. And that disempowering state is really unpleasant. And the Spirit's always reminding us that we need to pull the projection back and look at it. And this is where our power is, because nothing is really as it seems, and our painful feelings are always an untruth, but something that we need to look at. Always a belief that we're a body that's at the mercy of the external world, and that we're trapped, but we're never really trapped. Gandhi was in prison for so many years, and he kind of knew that he was free, that freedom comes only at the mind level, and we can always feel trapped, because the body is essentially the trap. The body identity is the trap, and we always think if we can move the body more, then we can be free. But freedom is not found in the body, because we're still subject to the mortal dream. We're still subject to things that we like, things that we don't like, and life and death, and we're still subject to this polarity. So we really need to transcend the mental state of duality in order to feel the freedom that we want to feel. And I have mentioned this before in another video about free will, that we think our will being free is that we can move the body wherever we want, but Spirit is always reminding us that there's a freer will, much more free than that. And to feel truly free, we have to be free of duality, and be in oneness in mind, and then we do feel truly free. That's what makes us feel free. It's not about freedom of the body. The Queen of Wands. The Queen of Wands is somebody who's very gregarious, very confident and energetic and warm. And this, I would say that this is everybody's kind of natural state. Somebody who's very trusting and loving. Somebody who has power. The Queen of Wands has power over purpose. Usually a powerful, powerfully creative, powerful influencer. So like the Empress, she can spread the word about love. She can put all her heart into being a living demonstration of love, and expansion to humans. And the Queen of Wands is usually very sociable and has lots of followers and influence. So if her focus is in the right direction, then you can feel very lit up in this state of being in the Queen of Wands energy. The Queen of Wands is probably, in our Western culture, the queen that's probably the most revered, because it's something that the ego would value, but also the Spirit can value as someone who can teach higher truths and just be like a living embodiment of abundance in the world. And the last card that's jumped out is the Star, which I love. This is probably one of my favourite cards. All about hope and inspiration and serenity, it says on the card. This is a card all about growing in trust, and staying in that state of gratitude and just optimism and courage. The mind is very aligned with truth, but also in a very humble state, where with the Star is kind of understanding both that we are our higher selves, but we also seem to be our lower self. very much an accepting of where we are, but understanding and trusting in the divine, that we're moving in the right direction. So yeah, this is a sweet card. I always think when the star comes out, I think the star is after the tower. So the tower is when something drastic happens, and usually the star is when we get to that place of healing and hope is restored. And healing is gradual for us because it can seem very intense to the ego. But yeah, when the star comes out, it means we're aligned with our destiny. So yeah, that's beautiful. Right, that's my little reading for today. I hope it helps. These cards are very pretty. I love you all. Have a good day. Bye.